folks, welcome back to Psycho Schizo Espresso. We are back for, well, we wouldn't be back for an old series, would we?
No.
A brand new series. Good day, Bruce. I've always been meaning to say that.
Yeah.
For real, to a real Bruce.
Yeah.
I'm in Australia,
Yeah.
Bruce, and I cannot find a real Bruce.
No.
So I've been saving this up. Good day, Bruce. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. I'm the digger deviant, you know, as I say.
You got to be sober when you use that line.
Yeah, I know. Well, I am.
You got to get that
beer can, you see, but unfortunately it's empty. Oh no, shit, it's not.
Shouldn't that be? Shouldn't it be a coffee cup?
No, I've got a beer.
I've got a
beer because I'm on the beach. I mean, the same as the same sort of situation.
Where the hell are you, man? I mean, anyway, I've lost track of you.
I am
Where are
in Venice Beach, Los Angeles, about 100 yards from the beach, and I'm doing in the studio doing some stuff for a solo album, and I've just had about 5 days decompressing after doing 44 spoken word, basically stand-up comedy for 3 hours for 44 gigs, 5 shows a week. I'll tell you what, I can't wait to get back to singing. I'm like, God, this is hard work. and I've never even had anybody slap me in the face either.
Oh, well, we'll come on to him in a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I last caught up with you in London, and I think it was the day you were leaving, wasn't it? For the solo tour.
Yeah.
Now I knew it was going to be hard work, and it was going to be a long old marathon. But how's it been on the road? Have you enjoyed it?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had some. I mean, we've been playing these fabulous old theatres. So all of them got great. I mean, from some of them dating from like 1922 and things. So they've got all the really ornate interiors and things like that. So the ambience there was brilliant. Yeah. We surprised ourselves as well. I mean, how amazing the merch was as well. I mean, T-shirts. Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, didn't quite expect it to be as good as it was. We had a fantastic crew of 2. Like Davey did the screen, and then Abe, our tour manager. But what interesting people! And we encountered just all these really interesting people along the way. I mean, we had a fabulous magician came backstage in Raleigh, Durham, and his day job, he's a vaccination specialist researcher, gets paid telephone numbers of money, but he's been a magician for 20 years. And he did this stuff with cards because he's like he's a brilliant medical researcher, but he's a punk. So he's got like tattoos everywhere and everything, and just turns up, pack of cards, opens it up, just T-shirt, and does stuff before your very eyes. I'm like, how'd you do that? And then he did something, and we filmed it, right? And he did.
I was going to say, did you make it? Did you get any of it in camera?
Well, we did the last bit. We did. So he did this trick,
right? Which
was me and Leanna, right? He said, "So you two know each other, obviously." I went, well, yeah, we do rather well, you know. So he said, "Well, if Leanna stands over there," he said, I want you to stand, about 10, 15 feet away, and just close your eyes, and just extend your arm, extend your right arm just in front of you. But keep your eyes closed.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch you somewhere on your arm, and you just point to where I touched you. So he touched me on my arm, and I pointed to it. He said, okay. He said, now I'm going to touch you somewhere else, and I want you to point to where I touched you. So he touched me on the nose, and I went my nose. He never touched me. He touched Leanna.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, you know what I'm thinking here, don't you? The obvious thing is our penultimate guest before Steven Pinker on series 1 was, of course, the professor of the paranormal, Chris French.
Yeah.
Now, I think that would be a very interesting little meeting, don't you? Chris
honestly,
French and your magician man.
Absolutely.
What's going on there?
Incredible. I mean, I was like, how do you do it? And that's the bit we filmed. The last bit where he touched Leanna on the nose, and I went, touch me there. And I wasn't peeking. Yeah. I wasn't looking. I mean, I wasn't cheating at all.
It doesn't matter, was it? Because, I mean, you still felt something, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though he didn't, it wouldn't matter whether you're looking or not.
He did this stuff with cards. So he got his cards out, and he takes them all out of the pack, puts the pack 3 feet away on the table, and we're about 2 or 3 feet away from him. We're watching absolutely everything. So he's shuffling the cards, and then he says, "Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one card. So it's this one, red card, right?" He said, "I'm going to move this card into that box over there." So we're watching it, and he's doing this, and he's shuffling the things, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking, that pack is getting smaller and shrinking before my eyes. Is it?
Yeah.
It can't be. Maybe it's the way he's moving the cards, and it looks like he's making them bigger, and that way I think they're small. But what? So he goes, "Oh," he said, "sometimes these tricks go wrong." He said, "Ah, damn." He said, I've put more cards than I intended to in the box. Have a look in the box. Look in the box. All the red cards are in the box. All the black cards are in his hand.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know, he's not. He doesn't say, "Oh, it's occult." It's a trick. But how the heck he does it is
absolutely
just fantastic.
Well, do you know what I think? I think we should have in this series. I think we should have someone talking about the psychology of magic.
Very close to the psychology of confidence tricksters.
Yeah, and I won't give the game away, but I think we're going to have just the person to be talking about that. So we can relay that story to them and see what they make of it. But actually, I mean, the psychology of distraction crime is exactly the same as the psychology of magic. I always remember, I think it was Liverpool Street Station in London. There was these signs a few years ago, and they were put as you come through into the main foyer. There were these signs saying, "Be careful, pickpockets in action."
Mm-hmm.
And the signs were actually put there by the pickpockets themselves.
Because people look at them.
What happens? You see the signs "pickpockets in action," and then instantly you check. "Oh, is my wallet still there?" But you're indicating where the wallet is.
Right.
You're going, "Oh, yeah, breast pocket. Okay. Oh, yeah, just check the backpack. Yeah, okay." You've already indicated to the pickpockets who are watching you where the wallets are, so you're a much easier mark.
Yeah.
In they come, swoop it out. So the pickpockets have put the signs there themselves. So you're absolutely right. The psychology of magic and distraction is exactly the same as the psychology of a lot of scams, confidence tricks, and that kind of thing. Won't give the game away too much, but we've got someone coming up who's going to talk about all that kind of thing. But I think it would be great if you're still in contact with your fella.
I'd love to get him on because he's a properly qualified medical researcher as well.
Yeah.
So he could do some quite wide-ranging stuff. But I mean, he's gone out on tour and done support gigs with punk bands doing magic. I mean, he's really, really. So his name's Magic Mike. He goes under the name of Magic Mike.
Magic Mike.
Yeah. And then he said, "Do you like food?" I went, "Yeah. Well, I'd be lost without it." And he said, "Well, my mate's just he's a Michelin 2-star chef in Chicago. I'll give him a shout. He might want to invite you around his gaff for a meal." So we went. So as a result of that, in middle of Chicago, I mean, it was freezing cold, perishing cold, snow everywhere, -20. But we went for this. I've never been to a Michelin 2-star restaurant in my life. It was quite an experience, I have to say.
And well, I mean, the psychology of food as well, really interesting. So actually, there's a lot of psychology behind what we find tasty, how much we eat, all that kind of thing. So another really interesting topic of conversation as well.
The sensors, you see, when I got done with my throat cancer, I have the ability to taste sugar inhibited. So I've probably only got...
Well, lucky old you, mate.
Well,
lucky old you.
There you go, you see. So in a similar vein, there's a chef who has no sense of smell. And as a result of having no sense of smell, it's his superpower. It's his gift because he creates mouth experiences that other chefs wouldn't even contemplate. So it's really interesting. I mean, so taste. why people like certain foods, why people, some people, and why people's tastes change over the years, whether it's physiological or whatever it is. I mean, the way our bodies change and the way our bodies can adapt to certain foods when we're young, and we don't adapt to those foods well when we get older.
Absolutely. And well, a very good friend of mine wrote a book on that. He's one of the world experts on gastropsychology.
Okay.
And he's at Oxford University. He'd be worth having a little chat to, because of course, what the food is served on also influences what it tastes like.
Yep.
So different coloured plates interfere with the flavour. So not all food tastes the same if it's served on different colour plates. So if it's all served on the same colour plate, everyone will have the same tasting experience, same flavours. But if you serve it on different coloured plates, even different shaped dishes, they can all have an influence on how you, but your eating experience.
Which is interesting because, of course, you get the fish knives and this knives and the butter knives and all the the accoutrements that go with it. The cut.
Yeah.
The cutlery is all different. The different wine glasses and things. I mean, it's all adding to the experience.
I think psychology of food, psychology of magic and distraction crime. I think we're already getting there, Bruce.
Yeah,
I think we're get offering little hints to the.
I was all over. I was all over. Doing how many senses do we have? I mean, you could do a show on every sense. And a few that people don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there was even a study done a few years ago in a restaurant. I can't remember where it was now. And it looked at menus and the typefaces in which menus were written in. And the simpler the typeface, the nicer the food tasted, apparently. So you could have the same dish written in a really complicated kind of typeface that was difficult to read. And you had the same dish written in a very simple, minimalistic kind of typeface. And because our brains kind of confuse simplicity, our brains have a kind of a bias for simplicity. The easier information goes in, the more we like it.
Yeah.
So if you've got a dish, a recipe, which is complicated to read, actually that interferes with our experience of the actual dish itself when it arrives.
Mini cognitive complexity index problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, get you. Who's the psychologist here then? There you got cognitive complexity. Exactly right.
I've got one under the desk. What,
a bit of cognitive complexity?
No, a psychologist.
Oh, have you? Do you know what, mate? It's the best place for them. Here's an interesting one for you. I discovered, I don't know if you know this, I'm hoping you don't, but I have a feeling you might. I'm down in Australia.
Yes.
So when you disappeared, we met in London in a very nice little cafe in Chiswick.
Yep.
We had a nice lunch in there. And you disappeared to America to do your one-man show. I disappeared down under to Adelaide to become Australia's first professor for the public understanding of psychology. And it's think of it, it's like the opposite of Crocodile Dundee, right? So you got an Ivy League academic in a tweed jacket, silk choker, and oxblood brogues, wandering onto a turquoise, pristine beach, decanting the elderflower cordial, and wondering why the sea's not the usual shade of grey and brown that it is in the UK. So I'm down here. And I discovered, because Australia obviously is quite well known for having some rather unusual wildlife, some rather dangerous wildlife as well.
Yep.
And one of those particular species are spiders. Did you know, Bruce, that you have a spider named after you?
Yes, I do. I did know that.
I'm not. Did you? Well, I guess you should. You must have done.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it. It's it was a South American biologist discovered a new species of spider that she called Extraordinarius.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, folks, this spider, there's a species of spider called Extraordinarius Bruceickinsoni.
No, that's great. Oh,
honestly, Bruce, seriously, I will send you the details. Maybe we can post the details at the end of this.
Yeah, we can.
Let me just get that absolutely right. I'm going to read it. Extraordinarius Bruceickinsoni.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's nocturnal, no threat at all to human beings, and it's
nice.
It's 3 millimeters in size.
Oh.
So I can see why they named it after you.
Yeah, absolutely. Short task.
But honestly, true. Extraordinarius Bruceickinsoni. You have a spider named after you.
Well, I was doing a gag on the one man show about anatidophobia. Do you know what anatidophobia is?
No idea at all. No.
Anatidophobia is
You're going to tell me.
Anatidophobia is a really good one. I do this story about how when I was in this band called Samson, and and we were all sort of like basically out of our brains 24/7, and I went into a gun shop and bought a life-size Canada Goose replica, and taped it to the top of a car that we were driving that was stolen. And went up to Scotland, did a gig, came back, blah blah blah. Then I get the picture of the goose up there. And I apologize. I'm sorry if anybody is in the audience is freaking out at the moment. Is anybody anatidophobic? And they're like, huh? What's that? And I said, well, okay. I said, well, basically, anatidophobia is the phobia that somewhere in the world, a duck or a goose is watching you.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got the goose up there, and he's got his thing. I said, look at that, that's pure evil. I said, can you imagine what happened when Steve Harris woke up in the middle of the night and went, fear of the duck? I said, and we had to change the words. I said, because, I have a constant fear of gooses always near, fear of the duck, fear of the duck. I said, we can't sing fear of the duck. It's got to be fear of the dark.
Yeah, but sung by Goose Dickinson. There you go.
Goose Dickinson. That's right.
Just change your Which brings me to another idea. Actually, another one of my very good friends, actually over here in Australia, is one of the world's leading experts on the weirdest delusions.
Oh, I love that
people can have. So I think I'm going to have a little word with him, and I think we're going to get him on because I interviewed him a few years ago, and he had a patient who I believe is no longer with us. That he named the Mirror Man. And the Mirror Man was a very intelligent chap, normal in every other aspect of his life, apart from the fact that when he looked, I won't give too much away because we're definitely going to get him on, Bruce. I think this guy's going to be brilliant. Yeah. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he was convinced it wasn't him, but it was an imposter that was actually copying his every move. He's got loads of different people. They're very rare, of course, these people that have these very weird niche delusions. For instance, that you're not really alive, you're dead, actually, but living in a dream. There's an illusion for you.
It's the Matrix.
And people actually, they're perfectly normal, perfectly rational in every other aspect of their lives, apart from the fact that they have these weird delusions. There's another one, I think, off the top of my head. A few people have this delusion in the world where they think that their parents aren't real, that their real parents have been kidnapped and imposter parents have been put in their place.
This is all very similar. I mean, when we're in the studio, there's the telly on in the corner with the sound turned down and the little ticker tape. Blah, 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 down the bottom. And for some reason, it's always tuned to the History Channel in America, which has nothing whatsoever to do with history. It's all ancient aliens and all the rest of it.
That's right. It's got nothing to do with America either, yeah.
No, so I'm watching, and every now and again, there's this just, I'm absolutely gobsmacked looking at going, am I actually reading those words right? That Hawaii is a portal for alien beings that came down because but there's lots of people out there that use that as a basis, that use people's delusions as a basis for alleged scientific research. Fantastic.
Well, absolutely. So I think we're definitely going to have him on. Now, you know what? That brings me to something else, which is kind of related, but it brings us back. What's the link between delusions and Will Smith? So obviously, quite a lot of things have happened since me and you have been apart.
Is that why they call it slapstick?
Boom. That wasn't rehearsed, was it, folks?
No,
yeah,
no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
I'm gonna cross that one off my list right now. That's that one gone.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting, the Will Smith phenomenon, because let me first of all, before I go into it, let me tell you about a little experiment that was done a few years ago. So you've got, it's a study which involves rats in a maze, okay? And you've got a T-shaped maze, right? It's a very, very simple little maze, right? T-shaped maze. So you've got in the shape of a T. And you've got a situation here where food is going to appear either in the left-hand side of the T or the right-hand side of the T. Okay, so you've got the central central stroke of the T, and then left or right in either corner you're going to have food.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. 60% of the time, the food appears in the left-hand side. 40% it appears in the right-hand side, and it's a competition that the experimenters set up between rats and humans. So who would be better at predicting where the food was going to be, right or left? Okay. And it turned out this was conducted, I think, at the University of Yale in America. And it turned out that the rats got it right 60% of the time. They were accurate. Their predictions were accurate 60% of the time. The humans, the Yale students, were accurate 52% of the time. So the rats were better at predicting where the food was than the humans, right? Now, there's been quite a few attempts to explain why this is. One of the explanations is the fact that actually the rats were using a very simple technique to predict where the food was. It just kind of got a hunch, as it were, where the food seemed to be appearing most often. Maximum likelihood, it's called. This is the strategy, the maximum likelihood strategy. And it was just going for that, almost like a gut instinct. Yeah. Whereas the Yale students were looking for patterns of distribution within the data.
Yeah, they were overthinking.
They were overthinking it, maybe because they had reputations to protect. You know, they were Yale students. There had to be something in it. But anyway, what that highlights is something in psychology called the narrative fallacy. And the narrative fallacy, right, is basically explains a phenomenon where if we get a series of events or we have something that we look at, we have to construct a pattern in it. Our brains cannot stop from looking for a pattern or an explanation of what might have been going on. Whereas the rats didn't have that in the experiment, the humans did. And when I saw, Bruce, you might be wondering where I'm going with this, but when I saw the Will Smith episode, now that's called a flashbulb memory in psychology. Everyone is going to remember where they were when they saw Will Smith go on stage and strike Chris Rock. Everyone's going to remember the first time they saw that. But it's really interesting because I've heard all kinds of erudite explanations, eloquent accounts of what might have happened there. Was Will Smith, was he reacting covertly and implicitly against historical prejudice in the academy, institutional racism? He'd been at home years. I know, yeah.
I just go and slap another black guy.
I know exactly right. The people forget that fact. Then there's the interview he did about, he was at home and witnessed domestic violence, and of course, he couldn't no longer stand by. We vowed he wasn't going to let that happen again under any circumstances. We've had all these accounts. And I'm wondering whether this is just a narrative fallacy. And actually what we've got is a guy that just lost it. He just lost it and got it wrong. And that was it. I mean, we're coming up with all these kinds of extenuating circumstances. But at the end of the day, it was a meltdown, a breakdown of discipline. And he just lost it, and the rest of it is just narrative fallacy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think you can read too much into it. I mean, you might say that Will Smith, may or may not have a very high opinion of himself because he's about to get an Oscar and because he's blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. And he just thinks this man is impudent and you're going to get a slap. I hate to say it, and everybody's jumping up and down. I mean, it was the Oscars, and everything, but people are jumping up and down like this is new. This goes on every Saturday night, hundreds of times in the pub. When somebody makes some joke, says something offensive about something, blah, 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 and the guy goes, you're going to get a slap in a minute.
Yeah.
And they do, and it's like, sorry, but this is sometimes the way that people behave. But everybody's like wringing their hands going, oh my goodness me, he needs to go to therapy. No, he just needs to calm down. You know what I mean? It's like, Well,
the other thing what you said there is, it's interesting because if you're in the pub on a Friday, Saturday night, and you get people that say, you keep doing that, you get a slap in a minute. You keep doing that, you get a slap in a minute. 9 times out of 10, actually, in those situations, they don't, because the person is just, don't warn me you're going to slap me, just do it then. Okay, if you're warning me, you give me an advantage. But actually, Will Smith, to back your point up, didn't warn him. He just went straight up and did it. Which makes it way more likely that you're going to enact violence if you're constantly warning someone. Oh, you're going to get it in a minute. You're going to get it in a minute. It's a bit like the scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
When they're playing cards, and it's if you keep warning someone, then why are you giving me an advantage? Why are you warning me in advance? That's going to give me an advantage over you. But if you're just going to do it, do it. Yeah. So absolutely right. But I think sometimes there's a real advantage to thinking like a rat, Bruce. And not overthinking it. I think with the narrative fallacy, we have to come up with complicated explanations to, justify a series of events where actually there might not be a pattern. There might not be a complicated explanation. It might be Occam's razor, the simplest possible thing.
Yeah. When you've chopped away all the other improbable things, what's left is reality.
Absolutely. Now, here's another little thing which I've uncovered. Now, I want to talk to you about fencing.
Oh yeah.
Not handling stolen goods.
Yeah.
Which neither of us do. but the sporting fencing, of course, which
the noble art.
There is a study that came out after we last saw each other in the British Medical Journal. Which I know that a lot of our listeners will be very interested in. And the title was something like "Heavy Metal Music is Good for Your Health, Good for Your Mental Health." And the study, have you come across this? Did I send you this? I can't remember if I did. But it was conducted in Finland.
Yep.
This study, and it looked at 311 municipalities, they were called, I suppose that means areas of Finland. And the researchers looked at the density of heavy metal bands within these areas, and they correlated it with hospital admissions. Okay, so hospital admissions, and they were, I've written it down, mental health related admissions, alcohol and substance abuse admissions, self-harm, and also other admissions due to violent behaviour. And they found that in the areas where there was the greatest density of heavy metal bands, in other words, where there were most heavy metal bands, actually hospital admissions were lower in those areas where the greater density of heavy metal bands were. So they concluded, bottom line here, of course, is heavy metal is good for your mental health.
Well, I'm always in favour of studies like that, but I have to say, I'd like to see the amount by which people were better. If it's within statistically significant margins, and also there may be other reasons why that is the case as well. Because did they cross-correlate it with the demographic of a particular area at the same? There's all kinds. It's like when people say, all these people are dying of COVID. It's like, whoa. People are dying with COVID, not necessarily of COVID.
That's right.
And until you really break it down, you don't get anywhere close to the truth. It's like, eating sweets makes you die young. And there's a statement, and probably you could find some study that somebody said, yes, this proves it. Eating sweets makes you die young. No, if you eat a lot of sweets and you're morbidly obese, you're likely to die young.
You know what, Bruce? I think I might have rubbed off on you over these last few months.
I hope you haven't been rubbing off.
I think you.
I wonder why there's no hairs on the side of my leg.
Gave you that one. I think you're beginning to think like a psychologist, mate. I think you're absolutely right.
Not mad, you mean?
I think one of the interesting things here is it heavy metal music per se, or is it? And this is what I was thinking, and we touched on this, I think, with Francis Rossi in the previous episode. Is it the fact that I don't think there's any kind of music like heavy metal, which has such a kind of a sense of community about it. And we saw this with the merchandise, didn't we? Like heavy metal merchandise is like, I've never seen it. I've never seen merchandise like that. It's almost like we were talking about tribes. Do you remember? And people have these kind of like heavy metal, they're like tribes. And I was wondering, having not looked into the study in any greater detail, whether it might be the kind of, I don't know, tribal nature of heavy metal music and like a stronger sense of community with that sense of music.
There is
music. I don't know.
There is definitely a strong sense of community. That's for sure. And it's nice because it transcends physical characteristics, it transcends racial characteristics, gender, and all the things that we like to segment people and divvy them up. When it comes to heavy metal, nobody's bothered. If you're a heavy metal fan, it's just like, oh yeah, you're a heavy metal fan,
Absolutely.
And if you think differently about something than me, we probably won't talk about that thing, but we'll concentrate on the things that we agree on, which is that we like this music. Years ago, I said some quote in an interview. I said, you know what? If heavy metal musicians were running the world, we'd be in a much better state.
Have we got a little hint there, Bruce? Have we got a little hint of things to come?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You've got to be kidding. Absolutely.
You never thought of it? Yeah, I mean, look, we got fencing, you got pilots, you got music. You never thought of it?
No. First of all, I've got a chin. Most politicians have got no chin, which has got consequences. I mean, soup is difficult, things like that,
Yeah. You'd have to cut your hair as well, I think, maybe.
Well,
maybe not. I don't know.
Or have no hair, because, you've got, although that actually, very few people have ever been elected who are bald.
Going back to the heavy metal stuff, and everyone's, it's kind of an all-inclusiveness. There is, at the University of Adelaide, which is where I'm based, the very first thing I noticed was there is a real trend over here at the moment for wearing T-shirts of old rock bands, and I've been making a list of them. I've seen 2 Maiden T-shirts, right? I've seen 2 Deep Purple T-shirts.
Yeah.
I've seen what else have I got? We got Led Zeppelin. We got Black Sabbath. A Mock the Hoople T-shirt.
Oh yeah, goodness me.
Mock the Hoople.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? Anyway, I've got about 10 or 12 of these. I mean, so it's really interesting. There's a kind of a trend over here for these like old T-shirts, which people are wearing. There was a study I heard of a few weeks ago, which I've been itching to tell you about because I know you love it. Very, very simple. You go into, I don't know, I can't remember what it was now, but let's just say you go into a TV shop and you want to buy a television, right? And there's a TV for 500 quid. And you go, all right, I'll have that one. And your mate says, no, not so fast, Bruce, because just down the road, there's another shop selling the identical telly for 400 quid, right? 100 quid cheaper. You're going to go, right, let's get in the car, let's get down there and buy that one for 400 quid, right? Save £100. Logical, rational thing to do. Now, let's say you are buying, I don't know, an Aston Martin V8. And you go into a showroom and it's on sale there for, I don't know, 250,000. And your mate taps you on the shoulder and says, hang on a minute, Bruce, don't buy that one. There's a showroom down the road and it's selling it for 249,900 £900.
And you say 100 quid, can't be bothered.
That's right, £100, whatever the £100 difference is. Okay, let's go down there. You're going to go, you've got to be joking. I'm just going to buy it off the forecourt right now. But is that rational? So in both cases, you're saving yourself 100 quid. However, in the case of the Aston Martin, it's 100 quid compared to 250,000. Whereas in the TV example, it's 100 quid compared to 500.
Yes, relative.
It's relative, but it's also 100 quid. If it's all about saving 100 quid, we should basically, in both circumstances, go down the road to the showroom or to the other shop, shouldn't we?
We would,
but we wouldn't, would we?
If we were an algorithm, we would.
Absolutely.
But we're not algorithms.
Yeah. Which takes us back to the example of the rat in a maze with the food. Sometimes being an algorithm is good, right? Because actually, who would go down the road to, save £100 on a £250,000 Aston Martin? You'd have to be nuts to do that. So best not to think like an algorithm in that case. But when it comes down to the rats in a maze, the fact that we're not thinking like an algorithm, but the rats were, makes us less accurate. So sometimes the bottom line, Bruce, for our listeners here, if they get nothing else from this first episode, is sometimes it's good to think like an algorithm, sometimes it isn't, right? There you go. We've given them something.
There you go.
So sometimes it pays to be rational, sometimes it doesn't. I'll tell you what, Bruce, so we last saw each other, just before Christmas, I think, wasn't it?
In London. Yeah. 4 months ago nearly now.
You went off on your world tour, your solo world tour across America. I've come down here to Australia. I've got to tell you very quickly, because I want to ask you that you've also got some exciting fencing news, haven't you? Which I'm fascinated by. But I'll tell you something. First day in Australia, honestly, not a joke. I woke up early Sunday morning, went for a run. It was about 7:30, and there was a 3.8 Richter scale earthquake. I was out running in Adelaide. It's my first earthquake, I've got to tell you. And I realised what was happening. I was running round an oval, a sporting oval, which they call it over here, and the earth started to rumble. Mm-hmm. And I thought, blimey, this is an earthquake. And it was, I will say, it was mildly interesting. But it did rock and roll. It did rock and roll. Yeah. Have you ever been in an earthquake? You must have been.
I have. When I was in bed, and I thought, hang on a minute, that's weird. I've got this impression that the room is shaking. Oh, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, really. But anyway, look, I want to ask you about your fencing. Very exciting news. Now, you have been picked to represent the UK in the Euromasters. The vets. So we got the the vets. The great thing about being a vet, I make crack the jokes about it. The wonderful thing about being a veteran is that eventually, if you stay alive long enough, you will get selected. Yeah. Well, you have done. But you've been doing this for a while. I know, because we've had a chat about fencing quite a bit. So now look, I'm going to pretend I know what I'm talking about here. Foil or épée?
Well, here's the weird thing. I've been fencing épée for years. I've had one foil lesson with a trainer, like the last 20 years. And all my fencing buddies were like, you used to be a good foilist. Why aren't you fencing foil? I went, I mess up my épée. And one evening I went, yeah, you know what? Go on. I'll have a laugh, and really enjoyed it. And about 3 or 4 sessions. And then I did the 2 selection competitions. Ended up on the team.
So where is it then, Bruce? Where is it?
It's in Hamburg at the end of May.
Hamburg at the end of May.
And it's an incredible coincidence, really, that we do a show in Bucharest on a Wednesday. Right. On the Thursday, that means I can fly to Hamburg. And the competition, the team competition, is on the Friday or maybe it's the Thursday, the Friday. Anyway, I have a day I can travel there. The next day is the competition, and then I've got a couple of days, so I can go and cheer on the Sabre and the women's team on the Sunday, and go.
Do you know what? I might come over. I might come over and watch you in action. Is it a good spectator sport?
Well, I can talk you through it.
Well, not while you're competing. You can't. I don't think. Listen, complete this sentence for me, right? Okay. Yeah. I would be. Okay, I'm dropping you in it now. I would be better at fencing if. So what do you? Obviously, you're a very good fencer, but do you have? And hopefully, your competitors aren't watching. Is there something that after all these years of training, whatever, you feel like, I could tighten that. If I could tighten that up, I'd be even better. What would you work on?
I would work on my head.
Right.
I mean, I would work on all the physical stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I would work on my head. I would work on, I was renowned for getting myself into situations and coming back from like 8-1 down and winning 10-9, right? Back, and that was it. Because the problem is I love a good fight.
Are you? Are you an aggressive? Are you an aggressive person then? Would you say
yes.
you had aggression in there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. I love a good fight. And sometimes having a good fight is not the same as winning.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. So when I was writing one of my books a few years ago, I interviewed a very well-known boxing trainer in the States. And we were talking about that. And he was saying that actually boxing is traditionally in the US, and I guess anywhere really, a working class sport. It's a sport. It's a kind of an exit sport where people can sometimes get off the streets and find purpose in their lives and kind of vent aggression. But it was really interesting. He was saying that, actually the entry level coming into any gym is the ability to fight. Obviously, you need to, in order to fight, in order to be a good boxer, you need to be able to fight. But he was really interesting. He was saying in order to be a great boxer, you've got to train the fight out and train the boxing in. So if you've got a guy like Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Leonard, you've got to get rid of the brute force aggression and train the kind of the smarts in, I suppose.
And that's the reason why I love to train. I don't have a coach at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay.
Foil. Yeah. I mean, I've had one foil lesson, one foil training session in the last 20 years. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to do it myself, which I don't really like. I mean, it's because, I need somebody to sit in front of me and go, yep, no, that could be better. Do it again. That's not bad. Yeah. Do it again. That's almost good. Do it again. It's almost good. Oh, that one was nearly good. Bang. And you just repeat until you're so calm.
Yeah.
That it's you go into a fight, and it's not a fight.
No, that's right.
It's clinical.
That's right. Yeah.
And you need that stillness inside you, and the way I achieve that, because I don't have that naturally. I'm like, let's go. That's great to have in the background, but you need that stillness. And I have defeated myself on several occasions by wanting to finish the job and fight. Instead of going, I'm ahead.
Well, I was about to ask you there. So you're good at coming from behind. So you say like you've been 9-1 down and come back to win 10-9. Does it work the other way? If you're 9-1 up, can you also relinquish leads very easily as well?
Absolutely,
okay, right.
Absolutely. And I've watched myself do it. Out of the body experience. What are you doing?
Well, you know what? I'm working with a well-known sports person who you will know called Jimmy White. Jimmy White and I have got, we're on a mission to win Jimmy that elusive world title in 3 years' time. We're on a 3-year plan. And I've got a suite of tests, psychological tests, which Jimmy's going to do, which looks precisely at what you're talking about, improving focus and getting that kind of arousal level down so you can clinically execute under pressure. So I think we should meet up.
Oh yeah, hook me up,
and we'll hook you up in more ways than one. In the meantime, we know we can't give too much away. We've got a fantastic new series ahead of us.
Oh, we do.
The audience are going to absolutely love it. If they like the last one, they're going to absolutely love this one. It's kicking. I can't wait to get on with it. Can you, mate?
No, absolutely not. And you've got good intel, haven't you, coming up? We do.
We have.
Yeah,
we do. We have a guy, one of the world's top experts in the very controversial subject of intelligence. What does it mean to be intelligent? Yeah. Is it genetic? Is it environmental? What do IQ tests tell us, if anything? Professor Mike Anderson. Absolutely fascinating episode. People are going to be riveted. That's what's on the card next, folks.
Let's go. We're back.
We're back.